I am standing in front of a 2018 Lamborghini Huracan Performante, as if you couldn't tell. This is a special Performante. It's my brother's Performante, and it is a car that we spec'd together. It was the second Lamborghini that he's ever owned, and it's the third with this V10 in it. I absolutely love this car. I think it is kind of the way that the Huracan should have came out of the factory. It is very raw. It is very hard edged. I think it's got so many gorgeous components to it. You know, what's funny is that a lot of people said that when the Huracan first came out, that it was a bit too tame. And they said that it drove a little tame, it looked a little tame. I don't know about looking tame. I think this is the quintessential wedge-shaped Lamborghini. Just look at how low this front end comes down over here to this ALA front lip over here. And let's go over what ALA is. Aerodinamica Lamborghini Attiva. That basically just means Lamborghini's active aerodynamic system. So what does that do? Very simple. You've got a pair of vents over here and throughout the car as well. They open individually, so if the car is going through a left bend, one of the vents will open up to give you more downforce on that side of the car. So essentially, the point of that system is to glue the car down on the road. It's kind of like cheating, but it's the cleverest way to cheat. This car set some incredible Nürburgring times with this ALA system. Having said that, what do we think about the exterior of this car? Well, I think that compared to the 580-2 that I drove, the rear-wheel drive car, I think this is almost the complete package Huracan. It has the prominent rear wing over there, which is not adjustable. It is fixed. But look at it, it's gorgeous. It's reverse mounted, so the spoiler sits below the top edge of the supports. And of course, if you're looking at this carbon fiber and you're like, that's not a carbon fiber weave. Well, of course it's not, because this is forged composite carbon fiber. It looks like a bunch of chunks of carbon fiber all meshed together, but they're not, they're forged together. So it gives this car a very, very distinct look. On top of that, let's take a look at this rear exhaust. So instead of the quad exhaust that you had on the standard Huracan, you've got this mid-mounted exhaust directly in the bumper. I think it looks fantastic. It's the way the car should have looked. And I think Lamborghini probably knew that they were going to make these cars look even more aggressive as time went on. And I think they did a fantastic job with the rear end of this car. Moreover, look at the engine bay. Even the engine bay has all that forged composite back there. I think it looks so fantastic. The valve covers, essentially the engine covers, is coated in a gold color as well. Now, whether or not that actually does dissipate heat in that coating, I'm not exactly sure, but it looks so cool. It looks more unique than the standard black. You've got plexiglass back here as opposed to standard glass. And just overall, this spec, this blue, with the carbon accents, and look at this, center lock wheels. Now, a lot of people didn't go for this. They thought it'd be a little too difficult to, let's say, daily drive this, but this is not a daily driver. This is a bit of a garage queen, and I can understand why. It's a very nice spec, but it's got some dirt, right? Look at this. We've got some dirt over here, so we do drive it every now and then, especially when I visit, because how can you not drive this car when you visit some family members, right? Overall, absolutely love this car. Love the way it sounds. I love the way it drives. But how much differently does it drive compared to the 582, the rear wheel, the base model car that's got something like 60 less horsepower? So this has 640 metric, 632 American ponies. So on top of all these revisions to the aerodynamics, we've got more power, right? What does that translate to? Well, 0 to 60, the fastest that's been tested, as far as I know, 0 to 60, 2.2 seconds. Quarter mile, 10.1 at 136. This is a really, really quick car. Car also loses quite a bit of weight thanks to some weight savings measures. For example, the exhaust is lighter. And then you've got some other lightweight components, obviously all the carbon fiber throughout the car. So you've got a lighter car with more power, insane traction control. That's why it launches 0 to 60 in 2.2 seconds. The car just dumps that clutch. And an incredible dual clutch transmission. Now that we've covered all that, let's go inside the car. All right, we're inside the Huracan Performante. There is a distinct difference between the Performante and a standard Huracan, and that would be all of this forged composite carbon fiber. It is such a large component of this interior. It is all over. In fact, it's even behind here. It's in the footwell. It's everywhere. It's on the door handles. It's on the air vent, including these vents here. So very, very prominent piece inside the interior. It is this forged carbon fiber. Otherwise, the interior is fairly standard Lamborghini Huracan or earlier Huracans that did not have the touchscreen over here. It had the MMI here. So as you can see, everything is located in here, including your backup camera. You don't get like a tiny little flimsy backup camera over here. On top of that, you've got your window controls over here, your hazards, your parking assist, and you can raise the front using this toggle. So you've got a bunch of little toggles here. And this is a dead toggle. Nonetheless, very standard, as I had mentioned earlier on. If you know the interior of a Huracan, you know the interior of a Huracan Performante. One small little difference is that earlier Huracans did not have this. Some of them just simply did not have cup holders. And I'll tell you one funny thing is that my brother's first Huracan did not have a cup holder, and he took it back to Lamborghini and said, where's the cup holder? And so they actually retrofitted one into his first Huracan, and that was back in 2015. What I really, really like a lot is the way the doors close. Let's listen to this. It is such a firm and solid thump, and I think that's where the whole Audi component comes into play, and that's why the interior and the build quality of this Huracan is very, very high end. Let's take a look at the trunk space. Now I can tell you right now, it's not a whole lot. Yeah, so something to keep in mind. I can tell you with certainty, I can say that this trunk is considerably smaller than that of my McLaren 570S, as an example. All right, so immediately, first thing I noticed is that steering doesn't feel a whole lot tighter than a standard 582. I think it is a little bit tighter, and granted, right now I'm in strata mode or street mode, comfort mode, but it is light. All right, here we go. So we already know about the epic sound of this V10. I mean, it's been around for so long at this point, and we know what it sounds like from the factory, and we know what it sounds like straight piped at this point because YouTube. This is a marvel of an engine. It's been around for almost 15 years. In some form or another, it's actually been around for 20 years, depending how you want to look at it. With the Performante and the louder exhaust, there's a lot more cabin noise in here than a standard Huracan. And it depends on if you like that or not. To me, it's actually relatively okay. Right now I'm cruising around 50, 2,000 RPM, and it's fine. And you know what? As the speed builds up, the steering does firm up quite a bit. There is more response, and still I am in Strata, and what I'll do is I'll switch to Corsa now, and I'll switch to Sport now, and that exhaust has gotten louder now. So there's more, the valves are open, and if you've seen how the exhausts on Performantes work, you can actually see the heat inside with the catalytic converters really, really getting red hot in there. I think this is where things get a little bit tricky, is that you constantly hear that exhaust roaring in Sport to the point of it being a little bit drony. So for the purpose of this video, for now, as you can tell, it just quieted down. So for the purpose of this video, for now, we'll keep it in Strata. So the suspension, as far as ride comfort, I mentioned that the 580-2 felt like a supercar with some GT component to it, or a little bit of a GT prowess. Not the case for the Performante. It is considerably firmer. It is more track focused. I don't think you could comfortably drive this 500-600 miles and not be tired. The seats are firmer. They are quite different as far as comfort is concerned. And I think this suspension will beat you up, especially if you live in a busy metropolitan area, such as New York or Los Angeles or anything like that. So if your roads aren't that great, the Performante is not the kind of car you want to daily drive. See how it goes. The signatures almost of the V10 is that it really does have good mid-range power. Low end, obviously not so much. You know, it's only about 400 pound-feet of torque, and that's just the nature of any high-revving engine. You know, all the horsepower's up top, all the power's up top. But the V10 does have very good mid-range, as I just experienced at the moment. Now, I have to say, right now, driving this, what's bugging me is this turn signal thing. It's just so annoying, because I constantly find myself looking for a little button to flick left and right and then cancel by pressing into it. See, one thing that sort of dates the Performante just a little bit is that despite this being a 2018, unfortunately, you cannot individually control the suspension from the powertrain setting. Let's say I want a throttle response that was super sharp and super responsive, but I didn't want the suspension to beat me up, and I didn't want the exhaust to blow my ears out. Well, unfortunately, you can't really do that in this car. You essentially are just stuck to the 3 pre-configured modes that get more and more and more hard-nosed as you increase them. All right, we're gonna give this car a little bit of a shakedown. We're gonna put it into sport. One thing's for certain, this car doesn't belong on these streets. It really doesn't. This is meant to be on the track. It's just not happy being on these bumpy, broken New York City streets, even though we're out in Long Island where we've got some nice water. It's just not happy. You can't daily drive this car in a place like this. Got a bit of a bend coming up here. One of my favorite bends. It's banked. There we go. Oh man. This is what I love about the Huracan. This is where the Huracan shines. Especially the Performante. It's so flat. It's so flat. And that's what I mean by this car doesn't belong out in the streets. This is a track car. It's not quite as, you know, crazy as an STO, but I think the STO is overly crazy. It's too compromised. It has literally no luggage space, cargo room. But from where I'm sitting, I would imagine, I've yet to test drive an STO, and I've got a few people that I know that have one. From where I'm sitting, can't imagine the STO handling that much better, because of the active aerodynamics on this car might still give it an edge, and the all-wheel drive might still give this the edge when it comes time to pacing this on the track. I think the suspension on this car would be a nearly perfect score if there was just a tad more comfort dialed into it, or it could be adjusted into it. But as it stands right now, driving this, it's a very, very firm suspension. If you're driving it on anything other than glass roads, if you're in Central Florida, somewhere in Florida in general, you would enjoy this. But if you're in a place like New York, it's just not very daily friendly. But I will say, I think cool factor on this car is extremely high. When I see a Performante, especially when I see a Performante spec'd like this, I just know that there's something really special lurking underneath it all, that this was built to destroy track days, just absolutely crush them. I feel like a novice could get into a car like this and put out some pretty good first-timer times. I genuinely believe that. You've got a lot of assist from the all-wheel drive system. You've got really good feedback overall. The steering wheel's fairly light, but you do get a good sense of what the car is doing at all times. Doesn't feel like it wants to understeer, and that it's a big plus to me, because I had my R8, and that was a V10, that was a Spider. That felt like sometimes it did want to understeer if you pushed it just a little bit too hard. But that was also quite a heavier car too. All right, fourth gear, second gear. Ooh. Wow, it is considerably faster than the standard rear wheel 580-2. And that's why I said in that review that the 580-2 is a good starting platform. I think that car also is a bit compromised, and that's why it's the entry-level Huracan. And it makes a lot of sense that if you were to buy one of those, tune it, mod it, because there's so much more potential to extract out of the Huracan platform. And the Performante is the perfect example of all that potential. It just screams to be driven, and driven hard at that. The exhaust noise is a bit of a controversial subject with me, because that's been kind of programmed. It's always the same thing. It's very repetitive. You always get the pops and they always sound the same. And I kind of wish that either Lamborghini programmed some more variety, or they just didn't do it at all. Because I don't really think this car needs the popping, to be honest with you. I really don't think so, because this car sounds incredible as is already. So in Corsa, the shifts get a lot firmer. You feel that. Suspension gets firmer. The steering wheel stiffens up some more. It becomes more responsive. This is ultimately the way you want to drive this car when you are any kind of winding road, or especially the track. So there's an interesting dilemma right now that I'm thinking about. Would I get this over a standard Huracan, be it a 610 or a 580? Personally, I prefer rear-wheel drive cars a bit more. But this is also very rear-wheel focused. So I believe most of the power, something like 70% of the power, 80% of the power, goes to the rear wheels on this car. And it really isn't supposed to understeer either. The issue is the price tag. Do I think all of these incredible materials, all this forged carbon fiber, does it add up to the price premium for a Performante? See, the lightweight stuff, lighter exhaust, all that, suspension, I could probably dial that in myself, right? I could buy an exhaust and save some weight. And I could probably buy an exhaust that I could make louder or quieter on a whim, and that wouldn't be tied down to this right here. But it's a six-figure premium these days in this market for a Performante. I'm not sure if I want that, because I like to buy a supercar and use it every day. I mean, I said this before, that's my McLaren. I use my McLaren every single day. And if I were to force to kind of garage queen my supercar, I would hate that. I think if you are the type of person who enjoys a track car, if you want something other than a Porsche 911 GT3 RS, you want this, right? So that's the kind of category this falls under. This is a richer man's GT3 RS. I think that's what the market for a Performante is. I think that's the demographic for a Performante. Nonetheless, I still love this car. I really do. I think it sounds menacing. It's got incredible body control. You can tear a track to shreds. And like I said, you could be a beginner, jump into this and do some incredible stuff. In a way, it's almost like the Italian proper Nissan GTR, because you can do all that stuff in a Nissan GTR. Unfortunately, it just so happens to look like a GTR. It's big and bulky and heavy and all that. But the Lamborghini does everything that you want it to do on the track. So all in all, my final verdict is that if you have the money, if you have the means, if this is what you're looking for, or if you have the necessity for a track weapon, you want a Performante. It's out of the box, perfect for the track. If you're looking for a car you can still daily drive, you probably want to stick to the standard 580 or 610. Just depends on if you want all-wheel or rear-wheel drive. On top of that, you can tune those cars to the specs of this, and I'm talking about engine spec. Sky's the limit with a Huracan. I think that's what makes it a very, very impressive platform. It's oddly enough a very tunable car. I love it. I love the interior. Fantastic build quality, beautiful looks, terrific driving experience. And if that's what you're looking for ultimately, that's what you want, and that's why you want a Performante. Having said that, if you like cars like Lamborghinis, if you like hardcore track cars, if you like Italian supercars, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.